business. Good evening, good morning, wherever you're tuning in from. Guys, my name is Danica Tanya, and I have been a dietitian for the last 14 years. And just when I think I've seen it all, there's always something else around the corner. And I pride myself on my open mind, but I always look at the nutrition content of a diet or an eating plan. I also look at the environmental implications of eating in a particular way, and also the sustainability or the longevity of that particular style of eating. Now, I'm going to present a relatively impartial review. Of course, there's going to be some of my own opinion, but I'm going to try and be as impartial as possible and really present the science to you. And like basically of all the top 10 diet trends that we saw for 2019, so for last year. And what I'd like to do is I've got a little photo. Hopefully this will this work? If I go, oh, it's not letting, oh, there we go. So I just wanted to share a little bit about who I am. Why am I talking about this? As I said, I'm a dietitian, and I have worked with a number of elite athletes. I have specialized in holistic nutrition. And one of the things that I'm most passionate about is helping people, in particular women, but also men as well, really be able to break through to their next level of health and really help them to achieve what it is that they want to achieve. And usually there's a little bit of troubleshooting along the way, but it's what I'm most passionate about because it's a challenge and I love being able to solve a challenge. So this is what I think I look like every day. The reality is this is what I look like most days. I do have a beautiful little girl who just turned 3 and is out for the night with Dad down at having fish and chips by the lake. That is on the menu tonight for them. So bit of a treat just to get them out of their house. So for those of you who are showing up live, hello to everyone. For those of you who are watching on replay, you can hashtag replay all you like. And I'd like to give everyone a gift just for showing up. I've put together an ultimate guide for plateau busting. And some of you may have it, but if you don't, I'll post the link in the comment section after this webinar is complete, and you can download it directly from your messenger inbox. Okay, and so let's get into it. Hopefully I can click through. Perfect. Okay, so I guess we are in this, we exist in an environment that's got this cacophony, if you like, of different diet trends and different ways of eating. So whether it's keto, we hear about vegan, low FODMAP. I really want to talk a little bit about, are these just kind of trending food fads or are they playing for keeps? And by the way, I wanted to say I'm going to keep this nice and short and sweet because my attention span is quite low, given that the quality of sleep that I get most nights is pretty average. So I will try and keep this short and sweet for those of you just like me. So moment of truth. Now you can post your comment in the comment section below if you'd like to be, have a bit of accountability, or you can just answer this in your head if you'd prefer not to comment. But a moment of truth here. So have you been guilty of swinging from one style of eating to another? And if it's yes, that's okay. It's good to experiment too, to learn, because it's only until you experiment that you learn what works for you and what doesn't. And all of our biology, if you like, is very different. And so what works for one person is going to not work so well for someone else. So it's okay if you've tried a couple of things. I've got a beautiful girlfriend of mine who was vegan for 10 years and then realized that actually she realized that her body didn't feel so good. And so now she follows a very kind of paleo style of eating. And my beautiful friend, you know who you are if you're watching this. So what I really want to do is I want to unpack some of the different diet trends that we've seen, and I'm going to give them a bit of a rating out of 10 on whether I rate them for longevity, for environmental impact, and also for the nutrition value. So give me a yes or a thumbs up if that's okay, and we will continue. Well, I'm going to do it anyway, so but I love the interaction. Awesome. So guys, let's have a look. So I've just said that. So the first one on my list was the 16-8 diet. All right. So this is a version of intermittent fasting where basically you eat in a self-selected 8-hour window of the day, and you extend your fasting window to more like 16 hours, which obviously takes advantage of the time that you're asleep. But then obviously you can extend it either side, or sometimes more extend the morning. So it really depends. So it could look like an eating window of, say, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., or it might be 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., or even some people have experimented with 12 noon to 8 p.m. So this is known in the nutrition science world as TME. So it doesn't stand for too much information, but well, that's not even E, but it stands for time restricted eating. And recent findings from a South Australian researcher, Leonie Hilbron, and her team of colleagues found that the earlier the eating sort of window, usually corresponded with better results when it came to things like weight loss and improved biology. So things like improved blood lipids, glucose levels. The challenges, though, is that it can be hard to fit in with family life. So if you can imagine eating between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., you need to have, if an early dinner suits you, that works really well. So you can have dinner on the table by 4 or 4:30, be finished eating by 5. But if you tend to get home maybe at 5 o'clock or walk in the door and you're still trying to prepare meals, that's probably not going to work for your lifestyle. The other thing is that you definitely need to be diligent with making sure you're getting enough and very nourishing meals in that 8-hour window. So that's kind of another challenge that we tend to see. It also, depending on what time frame or what eating window you choose, you can sometimes miss those natural peaks and troughs in your circadian rhythms, which, so basically if you're not eating before 12 noon, yes, there's a metabolic peak at 12 noon, but you tend to miss the one that happens in the morning. And so that might not be right for you, especially if you tend to, you may have self-diagnosed, or maybe clinically diagnosed things like adrenal fatigue may not benefit so much from that style of eating. And like I said, it may not be appropriate for your lifestyle, for your goals, for your medical history, and for your preferences, and also if you take medication that relies on you eating at particular times. The benefits, on the other hand, is that 8-hour window may create more conscious food consumption. So it may make better, more, I guess, thoughtful food choices rather than kind of grabbing whatever's around. The earlier eating cutoff time may help to minimize that after dinner kind of snacking temptation, because you've kind of got a time now that it's 8 o'clock or it's 7 o'clock or whatever, and that is, you're done. And if you're watching this and you've found that restricted eating window has worked for you, let me know, because it's always really good to hear with what's working for certain individuals. So bottom line is, the early science is promising, but always be sure to check with your health practitioner if you have any medical conditions or take medications where it may not be appropriate. And the scoreboard results for me, this is about an 8 out of 10 for longevity, for science, for the environmental impact, and for the impact on your health as well. So definitely not a bad one. So let's have a look at the next one, which is a low FODMAP diet. So hands up, give me a yes if you've heard of a low FODMAP diet. Maybe you know someone who's had some health benefits from following a low FODMAP diet. So basically, for those of you who may have heard of it but not sure what it is, FODMAPs include some simple sugars and short-chain carbohydrates that can be difficult to digest, or they resist digestion, which, if you've got irritable bowel symptoms or diagnosed irritable bowel syndrome, some of these higher FODMAP foods can trigger, gut discomfort and pain in people that experience that kind of sensitivity. And the idea is that through eliminating these FODMAPs, or these types of sugars and carbohydrates that tend to be triggers or unknown triggers from your diet, we see that IBS symptoms should improve. Now, the science shows that around 3 out of 4 people with IBS do experience relief when they follow a low FODMAP diet. But this comes with a big but. And it is not meant to be a long-term diet because for many of those FODMAP type of foods, or those FODMAP compounds, they are actually really key sources of prebiotic fiber. So basically the type of fiber that feeds your gut bacteria and keeps them healthy. All right, so these types of fibers are also key components to our microbiota, or our microbiome, producing, you might have heard of them, they're called short chain fatty acids, or SCFAs. All right, and they play a huge role in healthy metabolism, in successful weight loss outcomes, in immune function, and even may play a role in healthy aging. So our gut health is really important. So the big thing is, if you do have IBS symptoms that are uncontrolled, then the protocol would be to trial a low FODMAP diet under the supervision of a dietitian with a specialist interest in the area. Okay, if you need a recommendation, please reach out. And the idea is to trial it for about 6 to 8 weeks, and basically until we see symptoms subsiding. And then the idea is to gradually and systematically adding in these sort of test FODMAP foods to assess your individual tolerance, and also your unique triggers, if you like, under the guidance of a dietitian. And the aim is really to widen your ability to, or widen your range of foods that you can have or that you can tolerate, while keeping the symptoms under control. Because I see way too many people following a low FODMAP diet for a long time, and that can significantly affect your gut bacteria, your microbiome, and you can recover it, but it does do some damage. So for me, the scoreboard is a 9 out of 10 for short-term symptom control, because we know it works, but a 4 out of 10 for long-term restriction, because it is overly restrictive, and we do see gut health being impacted on a long-term, very strict low FODMAP diet. So that's the low FODMAP diet. So let's talk about the mono diet. So this is an interesting one. So the mono diet involves eating just one type of food, such as fruit or vegetables. And in extreme cases, it may be limited to just one food. So for example, bananas, or you might have heard of just eating bananas, or maybe just eating potatoes. And the premise is that you can eat as much of this particular food as you like, but only that food in isolation. And we've seen famous comedians and actors and YouTube stars even have sort of spruiked this diet as for its dramatic weight loss results. And as you may expect, there's no scientific evidence to support this diet. It's highly restrictive and will result in micro and macronutrient deficiencies, like protein, for example, over time, in a very short space of time too. So it is definitely not recommended. So I give this a score of -1 out of 10 for the impact on health, for its impact on, and for its sustainability. All right. Now, and possibly for its environmental impact as well, because if the whole population decided to just eat potatoes, well, that wouldn't end very well. We just wouldn't have enough potatoes to sustain everyone's requirements. As a side note, while obviously I don't recommend this kind of style of eating, right, at all, so do not misread what I'm about to say, I will make mention of the fact that studies done in the 50s and the 60s, when, we were all learning about appetite regulation and, ethics were a little looser back then, these studies did see a reduction in appetite drive when the variety was very significantly reduced. So the bottom line, what I'm trying to say here is, we talk about this whole, enjoy a variety of different foods. Well, variety is important for eating pleasure and for accessing a wide range of vitamins and minerals, but too much variety, a la the buffet effect, can really overstimulate our appetite and lead us to overeat. So just a side note, I just wanted to share that out of interest. I'm definitely not recommending the mono diet anytime soon. All right, and I doubt the science will change on that. So Let's move on to the Fast 800 diet, okay? So the Fast 800 is an intensive 12-week diet and was conceived by Dr. Michael Mosley, so he's the creator of the Fast 800. And basically it combines a Mediterranean-style eating plan with fasting days of around 800 calories, or it's more like it's periods of calorie restriction or calorie cycling if we're talking in nutrition science terms. The promise is that you'll see rapid weight loss, reversing type 2 diabetes, and improving metabolic biomarkers like things like blood lipids, blood glucose, and insulin levels. And there has been some early evidence to suggest that maybe that you will see some weight loss. In addition to, it did help some people go into remission for type 2 diabetes. So there are some benefits, obviously. So we know that short periods of fasting can result in very positive metabolic shifts. The challenge is that it can be a little bit too restrictive for some. So there's the first 2 weeks where it's 800 calories and it's in an 8-hour window. So they're doing calorie restriction and they're doing time restricted eating, right? So there's quite a lot of restrictions imposed. It may result in the loss of lean mass, aka muscle, all right, especially if your training stimulus isn't bang on, right? So and if you're coming to Super Sunday this weekend in Melbourne, the beautiful, or the incredible, I should say, Lockie Horner and I are presenting together there. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the right kind of training. But the other thing is that we don't know of what the effects are long-term beyond those 12 weeks. So I guess the science is still out. There's early science to suggest that there may be some merit. The thing is that intermittent fasting is still very relatively new on the scientific horizon. So we know a lot more than we did 10 years ago, but we will know a lot more in the next decade to come, which is the best protocol. How often? How is it? Is alternate day fasting better? Is the morning period? Is daily periods of fasting better? We will know more as we've got more time to not only study now but also see the long-term effects. So hopefully that makes sense. Give me a yes if this is interesting. Hopefully you can hear me, because I think I've had people, I've turned my phone off because otherwise it just dings all the time. So hopefully it's all working, and I am recording this. So that is a good thing, just in case that has happened to me where I've done the whole thing thinking it's live and just didn't record. So anyway, let's hope for the best, and let's talk about the Nordic diet. All right, so the Nordic diet is based on foods traditionally consumed in the 5 Nordic countries, so being Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, and Iceland. Now, the benefits that are promoted behind this diet is basically, so it's not just for weight loss, but it's also promoted as extending health benefits as well. And it focuses on things like plant foods, whole grains, legumes, seafood, lean meat, and healthy oils, which sounds like a great way to eat for any dietitian, all right? And emerging evidence does suggest that it improves heart health markers and weight loss with this approach. So my score for this one is a whopping 9 out of 10. So gets good marks, because again, look at the overall diet, look at the overall impact on the environmental impact of how we're eating, and also the health markers. So yep, that scores pretty high in my books. Moving on to the ketogenic diet. So the keto diet, let's try and be very, I'm going to try and be unbiased here, right? So the keto diet is a very low carb diet that basically promises rapid weight loss. So virtually all carbohydrate containing foods are off the list, and the focus shifts to eating more high-fat foods with moderate amounts of protein. Now, research, if we're talking about the research does show that the ketogenic diet may be effective in managing symptoms of epilepsy in children, but for the general population, at this point in time, it's not recommended. So now, remember what I was talking about, how gut health is now becoming more and more recognized as kind of the furnace of good health. So we see positive weight loss outcomes. We see good, we see a positive effect on heart health. When your gut health is right, we see a positive impact on how well you age or how well you don't age depending on your gut health. Now, because a lot of those gut health promoting foods, things like whole grains, fruit, and starchy veg are off the menu, it does become highly restrictive, and it is likely to affect good gut health if it's followed for the long term. And just like I said, in case you weren't aware, gut health is definitely that sort of compass for positive health outcomes, like I said before. So due to the restrictive nature of keto diets, we see nutrient deficiencies are likely to pop up alongside other unpleasant side effects like fatigue, constipation, and bad breath, which can make it really challenging to sustain. So the scoreboard for me, this gets a 2 out of 10 if we're looking at sustainable, good living that's also really good for our environment as well. All right, the next one on the list is the flexitarian diet. So this type of eating reflects eating a majority of plant foods with some occasional meat and fish every now and then. And it comes from the phrase, the flexible vegetarian, okay? Now it's been suggested as a method for weight loss. If you Google flexitarian diet, it lists a whole host of reduced risk of many different diseases and may even reduce your carbon footprint. Again, everyone's got an opinion about that. We're still really not communicating very effectively about that, but that's one of the benefits that's touted about a flexitarian approach. The evidence suggests that if you're going to try a new diet, you may want to try this one. So a recent review of around 25 studies showed that this way of eating had a positive effect on body weight and metabolic markers, and a reduced risk of type 2 diabetes. So for me, this one gets top marks. So this one comes in at 10 out of 10. All right. So moving on to, we're nearly there, guys. We've got 2 left. So we're gonna. So the next one I want to talk about is the CICO diet, or it's an acronym basically that stands for calories in, calories out. So this is nothing new, but it's a new spin on an oldie. All right, an oldie and I was going to say an oldie and a goodie. Not sure about that. The premise is that if you eat fewer calories than you expend through movement or exercise, then you'll lose weight. Now, while it's somewhat true that getting your calorie intake right is important for weight loss, there are many other factors to consider, particularly in relation to your long-term health, especially in relation to your gut health, and in relation to things like your ability to maintain and grow lean mass, aka muscle, as we've talked about, right? Remember, for those that need a little refresher, muscle is the all-important thing that drives your metabolic rate. So you can, with the impact of your muscle can be the difference between running like a Toyota Corolla versus running like a V8 supercar, okay? It's a very, very different metabolism, if you like that analogy, but more on that at another topic. Stay on track, Danny. So the quality of your diet here is the most important thing to consider, which means that 100 calories from, say, a punnet of raspberries is going to be very different to 100 calories that comes from a bit of chocolate, all right? And for most people, counting calories isn't sustainable in the long term. And it also needs to, like I talked about, consider things like nutrient quality, macronutrient distribution, and the timing of meals and snacks. So really important. So for me, the scoreboard is coming in around a 3 out of 10. So not a huge score there. All right, let's talk about, sorry, I lied. We've got the alkaline diet and there's one more to come. All right, so let's talk about the alkaline diet. So it's based on the assumption that different foods can increase or reduce the acidity, so the pH of your blood. Now, this approach is touted to reduce inflammation and weight gain, with the goal of the diet being to consume mostly alkalizing foods or less acidic foods, okay? Now, foods that are considered to be more acidic in the diet or in this diet are things like red meat, chicken, fish, chocolate, cheese, wheat, and alcohol. So they tend to be what are considered to be the more acidic foods. The food that you consume does impact the acidity of your urine, but it's unlikely to affect the pH of your blood, which is very, very tightly regulated by your body, because minor changes in your blood pH can be dangerous, if not deadly. So your body has got it on very, very, very tight control. So now here's where I'm a little bit different. So most dietitians will dismiss the effects of an alkaline diet, but let's look at the positives here, okay? So and this is probably because I've worked with a lot of homeopaths and a lot of naturopaths, and I can see their point of view, all right? Now, number one, it does encourage the consumption of more darker colored and fruit and vegetables, so things like green leafy vegetables, okay? Now, that's always a plus for good health, no matter what angle you're coming from. It removes alcohol. Now, safe to say, that's always a good move, all right? It's like the number 2 carcinogen under nicotine, right? So they're the kind of the very, very just socially accepted, right? Maybe not nicotine, but definitely alcohol is very socially accepted, and is one of the top carcinogens if you have it in the right amount. And it also encourages less high calorie density foods like chocolate, like cheese, or the chert ones are always usually the bad ones, and processed and refined wheat products. So like things like donuts, which again, always a good move for weight loss in my books. All right, so the science on how this eating style is still out, and this is where dietitians, are very quick to dismiss it. So I am going to give it a score of 3 out of 10, more from the fact that there's not a whole lot of evidence to support this kind of alkalizing approach. But I should also say that if you are going to take elements of the alkaline diet, I think you're on a winner there, and I think that'll boost the score for you. So I'd be marking it more like a 6 or 7 out of 10 for sustainability there. Okay, so let's have a look at the last one, which is the vegan diet. So just in case you are unaware, the vegan diet eliminates all animal foods and their byproducts. Okay, so this diet is often motivated by ethical reasons for animal welfare and or environmental sustainability. Now, there's also some claims that this way of eating may help with weight loss and may also protect against some chronic diseases. There is also, I am aware that I haven't watched it yet, so on my list of things to watch, but there is also a very convincing doco on Netflix right now, which happens to be directed by a very, very talented director with a significant share in a pea protein company. So just saying. But a vegan diet, which is rich in fruit, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts and seeds, can be a very nourishing way to eat, and it can have a really positive impact on your health. But if it relies on a lot of vegan marketed processed foods, it can be full of sugar, sodium, unhealthy fats, and sometimes even a lot of artificial additives and preservatives. So definitely have a look on the back of the packet. Even don't just go with vegan and organic being the only things that you look for. Have a look at the ingredients list and see what you're actually getting. So note that, again, this is in my personal opinion, that it may actually be an environmentally unsustainable way for the entire planet to consume only plant-based foods, due to the fact that we've got limited space to grow enough legumes, grains, and nuts to support 100% vegan diets. But that's an entirely different conversation. And while I'm certainly no expert on this, I've realized that there are a number of conflicting views on and opinions on this. So let's stay tuned. Bottom line is that more plants are a good thing to eat. And if you can deal with the increased volume of food at each meal to ensure that you're getting enough of the right nutrients, then this could yield very positive health benefits for you. So I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. All right. So so there you have it, 10 of the best and worst diets of 2019 and where to in 2020. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I hope this has been interesting. I love bringing you these kind of snippets, and I will also do a blatant pitch for what I'm doing now. If you feel like you need to lift your game, refine your focus, and have someone guiding you through your ups and downs, because when you're especially on a weight loss journey, there are many of them. I've got a few places left for my February intake for my 8-week program, Master Your Metabolism. So if you'd like to have a chat with me to see if it could be what you need right now, I'll post the link below in the comments after we've jumped off live, and we can chat on Messenger. If it's right for you, it's great. If not, no hard feelings. But I've had some really, really great results from the pilot that we ran last year, and we've had some incredible women doing some incredible things. So if you think that you might be interested, let's have a chat. So now, guys, I did promise you a bit of a freebie. So again, to access this guide, I'll pop the link in the comments below. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great night. Cheers to your healthiest and best self in 2020, and let your vision be 2020 for the year ahead. Bye for now, guys. Thanks for joining me.